Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my August. I think I get it wrong every single month. Welcome to my July reading wrap up. Before we get into all of the books, all my ratings, my reviews, you guys know how these wrap ups go. Let's get into the genres and whatnot. I feel like I had a very diverse reading month. I had a lot going on. In all, there are 15 books. Out of those 15, I read 13 of them. I soft DNF'd one, I fully DNF'd another. For genre breakdown, there were 2 fantasy, 2 fiction, 6 romance. One of them was a magical realism, and then I also read 1 novella and 1 graphic novel. Like I said, lots going on this month. I don't know where this range came from. I was bouncing back and forth between genre types of books and all this stuff. So we're gonna get right into it. All of my thoughts, opinions, like I said, you guys know how these go. I'm gonna get right into it. We have lots to talk about, lots of opinions to get through. So the first book that I completed in the month of July was Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This book was, I think, out of all of the books I was anticipating for this year to come out other than Into the Dark by Jessa Hastings, this was solidified in my mind as anticipated 5-star read. Like, I had no doubt in my mind this was gonna move up to one of my favorite books because of the first book, Powerless, which, if you don't know, Reckless by Lauren Roberts is the second book in the Powerless trilogy. The third book comes out next year. This one, probably my most anticipated release, again, other than Into the Dark. I went to the midnight release for it. I had a whole excursion with this book. I was so excited. I was a little bit let down, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if that was a me problem. It probably was. My expectations were through the roof. Like I said, thought it was gonna be a for sure 5-6 star. So excited. The first book is one of my favorite books from last year. It's just so easy breezy fantasy. If you want to get into fantasy, you like romance, you want to mix the two, it is probably the most perfect book to do that for, or if you're looking for something like that. More about this book. Again, it's the second book in the trilogy, so it's following the same 2 characters as our first one. This is more of a cat and mouse thing going on. You have one character who's the enforcer. He's sent out to kill the ordinaries of the world, and you have Peyton, who is an ordinary, and she is running from the enforcer, and that's kind of like the basis of how the story starts. Obviously, I can't get into much of the plot without spoiling it, but I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, which is such a bummer, again, because I thought this was gonna be a for sure 5-star read. I was really into it the first 100 pages. You know, the plot was there, they were chasing each other. It started right from when the first book ended, so there was like so much anticipation and tension, and I was just excited to see our characters again, be in this world again, so I was really into it the first 100 pages. You know, the writing style is very simple and very easy and fast paced, and I love these characters and the plot and the world that I was just like into it. And then after the 100-page mark, I feel like we just lost a lot of what was happening. I feel like the banter and the romance between our 2 characters took over the whole entire book, where it left out a lot of the plot, and the plot was kind of just like on the back burner, which was a little bit upsetting to me, because I know it said as this book came out that it was kind of like a middleman book, you know, it's like the bridge into the third book, but I still think there has to be a plot, there has to be something there to hold on to and be entertained while I'm loving the romance. Like I said, the banter and the wittiness and the romance that I love so much from the first one was heavily in this book, where at some points I kind of wanted it to be toned down a little, which is crazy to say because that's one of my favorite parts from the first book, but since it was so much of this book, it kind of like lost the magic in it, and it lost the things that I loved about it. Even though I love our characters still, Kai and Peyton are just some of my favorite fantasy characters ever. I just loved following them, their personalities and their connection with each other, and their chemistry is like so good, but I feel like it just took over so much of what I wished what was happening, because we got a plot in the beginning, like there was structure of where we were going with this book, and it kind of just fell off, and I think we focused more on the romance of it, which again, I love so much, but the actual plot was just not there for me. Lots of stuff was being brought up from the last book, or just like from this book, just more plot points being brought up, and then we just never fall through, so we never got answers to it. Again, this is, like it said, a bridge book to the third book, but I still think there has to be some questions answered, where I have even more questions raised for the next book. Even though I did give this 3.5, I still enjoyed my time reading it. The writing style, like I said, is very easy to understand, very bingeable writing, and very entertaining. I just think that the plot was lost. I'm very excited for the last book. If what I'm hearing about it is true, I think we're gonna have a lot of the plot back in, a lot of the anticipation and adrenaline from the first book, and a lot of like the actual fantasy elements that I loved from the first book into the third one. The way this ended was crazy, and I did guess it, but with the way it ended, I'm excited to see where we take it to finish off this trilogy. I was a little bit disappointed with this, but I still think it's one of my favorite fantasy series. I think it's just very entertaining. I just didn't really love this book as much as I thought I was going to. Funny enough, actually, I started this next book before this one. It was just a book I was reading to wait out before this book came out, because I knew I wanted to read this as soon as it came out, and it came out early in the month. So I actually started a reread, and that was Reckless by Quicksilver. So I had back-to-back Reckless books going on in 2 different genres. If you don't know, Reckless is part of the Chestnut Spring series. It was my second favorite in the whole series. I remember vividly reading it and just being absolutely obsessed with it, but I think it's bumped up its spot to my top favorite in the series. There's something about rereading a book, you know you love it if you can sit there knowing exactly what's gonna happen and reread it and still enjoy it, maybe even more the second time. I'm obsessed with this book. There's one scene in here that's why I reread this. I was thinking about it so much and I don't really know why. It was just like stuck in my head. I wanted to read a book like this. I wanted the main characters like this in a book, and I was like, you know what? Let's just reread it. That happened so early on in this book, and that is the scene I really wanted to reread. It happens like maybe in the first couple chapters. It doesn't matter because the rest of the book was just as amazing as that one scene that I was waiting for. If you don't know, Chestnut Springs is an interconnected standalone series. I've talked about it so many times. It's like a cowboy, small town romance, lots of found family aspects. You get to see each couple as you go on in the series. You just get more attached to them as it goes. Rhett from the first book, Flawless, is Theo's mentor, and you get kind of like him in the first book a little bit. And then as it goes on, you meet Winter, and Winter is from the outside and everyone else's perspective, very cold. She kind of like has the name that goes to her personality and everyone else's point of view. You stand off from Winter because she's just known as like this ice princess. You don't really want to go near her, kind of like that type of thing. She has a little reputation to her because of the past and her relationship with the other characters. But when you get into her point of view, you just see how she's been feeling, the relationship she's been in, and everything about her that's just not really true from other perspectives, and you get to know her and she grows on you so much. And then from the first chapter, the confidence this man has, there's nothing like it. If you like a confident man, a golden retriever confident man, this guy is for you. And the way that he just like knows what he wants, he's very sure of himself. It's just so nice to see, especially with someone like Winter, who's had people all around her just like say negative things about her and not understand where she's coming from, and Theo is not there to agree with them. Like he sees her, which is the most wonderful part of this book. It does have a trope in here that not many people like, but Elsie Silver did it so incredibly. Like, I'm obsessed with this book. I gave it, I think, like 4.5-ish stars the first time I read it, but because I reread it and it still held up and I'm still obsessed with them, I'm giving it a 5-star. Like, I love them so much. If you have not read Chestnut Springs, you have to read it. You have to just get to this book. Like, it is so good, so worth your time. You need to read the series. I've said it so many times, but please read this series. Theo Silva, the man that you are, I love them. I love him and Winter. I love the relationship. Elsie Silver's writing is so bingeable. You can sit down, start this book, and be done within a few hours of the blink of an eye, and you're like, literally, where did the time go? She writes banter and connections and chemistry like no one else. I am obsessed. Sticking with reading books on my Kindle, I then read Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is part of the Windy City series. This is the 3rd book. You follow Kai and Miller. Kai's a baseball player. He's in the MLB. He's also a single father. He used to be kind of like a playboy, flirty, but since he's become a father, he needs to take on that responsibility. You know, he's leaving games early. He's not going out anymore. He's a very like protective, but almost like helicopter parenty, but it's very endearing because he just takes on this role so headstrong and he just like loves being a parent. And then you have Miller, who's the complete opposite. You know, she is a renowned Michelin star chef. She is taking the summer off. She's coming back to where her dad is. Her dad is actually the coach of the MLB team that Kai is on, and her dad ends up agreeing with Kai, having this agreement that Miller is going to be nannying his kid for the season or for the summer because Kai has to travel around and stuff, and it's just helpful because no other nanny does it for Kai. He fires all of them. He just does not like them. So he hires Miller. She ends up staying with him, and she actually lives out of this, I think it's like a van she had. I don't know if it's a van or a truck or something like that. She lives out of it. That's like her lifestyle. She's always traveling, never sets down roots. You know, she's only staying for the summer. I love me a single parent nanny trope. So far, I've only read a couple. I don't know if it's because like I read Reckless and then I read this. I'm just really into single parent tropes right now, or Love Unwritten I recently read. They're eating so hard. I'm turning a new leaf and I'm loving single parent, like that type of trope in book. It is so good. I gave this book 4 stars. I loved reading about their story. I loved reading about each of these characters. I feel like as you go on in the Windy City series, you become more and more attached, just like Chestnut Springs. It's honestly the sports romance version of the cowboy Chestnut Springs. Like, you have the same feeling and attachment to these characters. I said this in the reading vlog that I read it in, but for some reason Liz Tomford's writing is very easy for me to picture, and a lot of times it's hard for me. I just read and just feel the vibes of books, but hers, it's just like the way she describes things, the way she writes, the dialogue and the banter, the connection, the scenery, the setting, like everything is very easy to picture and understand, and it's just so easy to fall into, and I'm obsessed with it. Kai and Miller's connection was so good. I was obsessed with them. I thought it was so fun to follow along with them. They're just so different. Miller was able to get a little bit out of Kai because he has now, again, like I keep saying, the responsibility of being a parent. She kind of brought out the flirtatious, like old Kai back out again. He kind of remembered who he used to be before he became a parent, and it was just so fun. The dynamic between all of like the team members and Miller, and her trying to find herself again through being a chef and like figuring out what she wants. Like, it was just really fun to go along. I gave this one 4 though because I feel like it slowed down a little bit towards the end / middle, getting towards the end. I feel like we could have wrapped it up a little bit. I did love the way that it did wrap up when we got to the end, but I think it just slowed down the pacing a little bit for me. But either way, I really love this book. I ate this one up. Heartstopper, the 4th volume. I was so excited to read this. I'm obsessed. As you guys know, I've talked about this so many times. If you don't know what Heartstopper is, it's a graphic novel series. It is so so sweet, so heartwarming, but also touches on so many topics that I feel like you don't really expect when going into at least the first one. It's about Nick and Charlie, their friendship that blossoms into a relationship, the struggles they go through as two individuals, but also in a new relationship together, you know, figuring out where they stand within themselves, you know, growing and figuring out themselves, but also as individuals, as a couple, with relationships with parents and friends and what their friends are going through. There's so many different topics, like I said, that this book touches on, especially this one. I would look up trigger warnings if you're going to read more into the series. I feel like the topics that were discussed were handled really, really well. I love our characters. I love seeing them do anything. It's just so sweet. I'm just obsessed with them, seriously. It's so fast paced because it's a graphic novel. You're just like flying through it. The visuals are perfect, especially for someone, like I keep saying, can't picture anything. The pictures are amazing, and you should definitely watch the show or read the series or do both. Highly recommend doing both. The third season comes out really soon. I think there's gonna be a sixth one of this book, I believe, and I'm just obsessed with them. I really am. They make me so giddy just watching them blossom and grow and with their friends and together, but also what they're going through. It is just so refreshing, I think is the perfect word for it. I gave this one 5 stars. I don't know if I said that, but this one definitely a 5-star read. The whole series at this point is a 5-star. I just don't know how I'm like rating all of them. I think I gave all the first 3 4 stars, but like at this point it's a 5-star series. Then I read A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This was our book club book of the month. I was so excited for this to come out. This is her new release this year. The concept of this is absolutely phenomenal. It's about our main character Elsie, who's part of this book club, and every year they meet up at this small like cabin place to do their book club. And then on her way there, she's the only one going this year. You know, people's schedules haven't really worked out. It's not really going well, so she's going by herself. But as she's going there, her car breaks down. She almost hits this guy, and she ends up going into this town, stopping for a little bit before she tries to get back on the road. And she's like, this seems very familiar. I feel like I've been here before. I feel like I've met these people before. She's very concerned. She's suspicious. And then she finds out she's actually stuck in her favorite book's town. She's meeting her favorite characters. She's talking to her favorite characters. She's noticing the setting that she's read so many times. Her favorite author's book is now the place that she is stuck in. Can you imagine? Like, let's just pause for a minute. The first like 100 pages of me reading this book and her finding out she's in her favorite book, I just could not stop thinking about like, what book would I want to be stuck in? And since I recently read Reckless by Quicksilver, I just could not stop thinking about, imagine getting stuck in Chestnut Springs. Imagine running into Theo in Winter. Imagine you're sitting at a bar with Winter and Theo Silva walks into the bar. Imagine that for a second. So the concept of this is a 5-star, a 6-star. Like, I'm obsessed. As book lovers and as readers, I think that Ashley Poston into this book like wrote exactly how we feel, and she knows exactly how we feel as readers and book lovers and just people that surround ourselves with so many different stories. Like, she gets that, and the way that she inputted that into this book, into Elsie as a character and her showing her love for it, like, it was just so good. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The only thing that fell flat for me is it felt more like a cozy read. As I was reading it, I feel like not much was happening. So I think me reading this like in the summertime and just having this like new release really excited where it was going a little bit slow of pacing and like not much was really happening, I think that I just like wasn't really into it, wasn't really invested. I think if I read this in like the fall or winter time and like cozied up with a blanket and just like had the knowledge that felt more of a cozy read, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. The point in time where I read this book, it wasn't exactly a hit for me. I love Ashley Poston's writings. I think I keep saying Poston and Poston. I don't know which way you say it, but I love her writing style. She has so many good quotes that are very like subtle, but they hit really hard, especially the ones in here about being a book lover. And then there was also a romance in here, which I knew may not have been like a heavy forefront of the book because I read her other 2 novels, and one of them is a little bit heavier on the romance, but I just didn't go into this knowing or thinking it was going to be a huge romance novel. But the romance we got in here, I didn't love. I feel like we didn't really know our male main character. I wasn't invested in their story. I think I was more into the concept of this and the magical realism of falling into your favorite book. I think Elsie trying to help her favorite book characters, I wasn't really invested into that either or interested too much because she loves her favorite book characters. I don't know them. I'm not in love with them like she is. So like, she was really into that and wanted to help them and figure out what was going on with them and their couples and the town in general, and I just wasn't as interested as she was. I think what would have been so cool is if this was like she fell into her favorite book and her favorite book was The Dead Romantics or The 7-Year Slip, and we're now in another Ashley Poston book in like that magical realism. I think that would have been so cool, but I'm not the author. That's just a concept in my head that I was thinking of. Either way, it was a 3-star. I love Ashley Poston's writing. I love her ideas. I love her concepts that she comes up with. I just didn't love this exact story or the way that it played out, but I still think it was a good book. I would recommend it if you're interested in the concept and in a cozy kind of like following women's fiction, magical realism, a little bit of romance towards the end, also a little bit of like mystery stuff going on, like you don't really know how it's gonna end, how she's gonna get out of this town. So now into my first DNF of the month, and that was Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy. I have been talking about wanting to read this book for months. I was so excited when I finally picked it up. It was one of those things where I didn't know what I wanted to read. It took me a while to figure out like what I was in the mood for, and I landed on this one. It's about this girl who goes abroad for school, and she finds out that the people that she thought she was gonna be rooming with that she thought were going to be 3 girls end up being 3 boys. They're 3 different, I think one's Australian, I think the other 2 are British. Like they're just like not what she was expecting showing up here. I got a good amount in here. I think I almost got halfway. I was like 100 something pages in. I listened to some of it and I just had to DNF it. And it has nothing to do with the writing style. I enjoy her books that I've read before, but the storyline of this one, I just could not continue reading. You're basically getting our main character who is kind of having this thing with one of the roommates, kind of like has an attraction to him, but it's like a love triangle, and the other one was one of her roommate's sister's boyfriend who's in a band. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, there's no way he's gonna be the other love interest, but lo and behold, they're spending more time together, they're being flirty, he has a girlfriend, and I'm just like, I can't support this, can't support it. I don't care if she ends up with him or the other one, like I just can't, I can't. And not only that, you have those 2 plot lines going on, they're not really interconnecting or intersecting. You have like, they feel like 2 separate stories, and then you have a third story. She's in school, the mystery of this like painting, she's like learning about the history of something, and you're like figuring that out like along with everything else going on, and also trying to get to know all the characters and all the roommates. It's like a lot that was going on. I wasn't into it, so I did DNF it. Really upset about it because I wanted to love this book so much. I thought it was such a fun concept, kind of giving like New Girl vibes, but didn't really love it. Then I ended up soft DNFing a book. This book was Quicksilver. I was so excited to read this because I got like maybe 3 people telling me to read it, but that name kept popping up and I was like, okay, I'll download it and I'll start reading it again. I was trying to mood read. I didn't know what I was in the mood for. Wasn't a fantasy though, could tell you that. I ended up just soft DNFing it because again, I'm just not in the mood for a fantasy, and I've heard great reviews, great things about this book. I feel like I would really enjoy it. From what I did read, I read like 200 pages of the book. I just knew if I was in the mood for it, I would have loved it and really enjoyed it. So I'm holding off. I'm gonna try it again in the fall winter time when I'm like in my fantasy, like I'm on a roll with fantasy again. That's why I soft DNF'd it. There was nothing wrong with the book. I was actually really interested in the storyline of it. I don't want to say too much of it. I honestly went into it a little bit blind, which I loved so much because you're learning with the main character like the politics and the magic and what's going on. I think if you read the summary, which I don't know because I didn't really read it, that may give some stuff away. So honestly, go into it blind, have a fun time. If you're in a fantasy/romantasy mood, I just know I'm gonna start reading this and try it again in the later months of the year. It's just not the book for right now. Really sad about it because I was really excited about it, but I'll get back to it. Then I read Play Along by Liz Tomford. This is her newest release in the Windy City series. Like I said, I read Caught Up earlier this month. I was on a roll with it. I've been into it. I read The Right Move earlier this year. This is about Kai's brother Isaiah. It's about one of the athletic, I think she's an athletic trainer in this book. Her name is Kennedy. Obsessed with them. I am obsessed with Isaiah because you get a lot of him in Caught Up. Again, that's his brother. You see their dynamic as brothers. You see kind of how they grew up, and you get the glimpses of him as kind of like this golden retriever. You know, he's very playful. He's always bantering, and you see him kind of riling up Kennedy throughout seeing him in Caught Up. And then in the epilogue of that, you kind of get the setup of their book. So one night they're in Vegas separately, they see each other, they get really drunk. Isaiah, since the moment he has seen Kennedy, has wanted her, but he has this reputation of being a playboy, you know, not one to settle down, and like just not the type that Kennedy can be with. She also works for the team and she just like can't get involved with any of the players. They end up having a drunk night in Vegas and getting married. That kind of just follows them back into the real world, and now they're screwed, but they end up having to just fake this marriage for the foreseeable future, and it is so good. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. I don't care what you say about any tropes that you like, any books that you like, any stories that you like. You need to read this book. In order to read this book though, you need to read the series. I didn't have the first one, but like you should read the first few books to get to this one, because seeing the side characters in here was so good. Like you're attached to them. Like I said, like if you're attached to Chestnut Springs Found Family, like this one is just as good, just like a whole different vibe. But seeing Isaiah and Kennedy and the way that Isaiah just like knew what he wanted. Like I said, Theo was confident, he was playful, he knew what he wanted. That is Isaiah. If you like Theo Silva, you're gonna love Isaiah. A whole different vibe. He's also a baseball player, so like not giving cowboy at all, but the personality and like him as a person, seeing his point of view and like what he actually wants, where he came from, his background, his growing up, like what he goes through, and like that plus his personality and like how he just like banters and like sticks up for and is there for Kennedy in like everything is so good. I also loved Kennedy. At first I didn't know if I was gonna love her. I was kind of like iffy on it, but she grew on me as the books went on. I feel like she was very relatable in a lot of stuff she was feeling, and I really liked her. I loved the story of this one. It is so good. I ended up giving this one a 4.75 when I first read it, but then I haven't stopped thinking about it this whole entire month. Like this is the top book I haven't stopped thinking about, and I have a reread of a 5-star. I have Heartless over here. I have not Heartless, Heartstopper over here. There are so many good books that I've read this month. This one may take the cake. I ended up bumping it up to a 5-star, which I just like, not in a million years. I didn't after the first book in Windy City series did I think I was gonna have a 5-star in the series. I'm sorry. That is crazy. I'm obsessed with them. I think the dialogue between them was so good. I think their relationship throughout the whole entire book was so fun to follow along. I think their banter was amazing. There were so many parts that I was giggling and kicking my feet, but it had me tearing up at one part. Like I'm obsessed with this book. So 5-star. Wish I could reread it right now. Obsessed. Then I read Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I still don't know how to say her last name. I've read all of her books at this point. This is her newest release. I was so excited because I've seen so many people online loving it, and I knew I was going to enjoy it because I enjoyed her first 2 books a lot. This one is about Allie, who's newly divorced. Her mom passed away a few years ago. She's now co-parenting, kind of like single parenting, and she's just going through it. You know, she's been in sweatpants for a while. She just like needs to get back out there. So she throws on a nice outfit. You know, she takes the dog to the dog park, and then she has a little meet cute with this guy, and the dog pees on his leg. It's not very cute when you think about it, but they end up going on a date, and then things progress from there. She's like, I'm not ready for a relationship. You know, you find something out, and then they just agree to a little bit of a summer fling, a summer romance, if you will. I give this one 4.75 stars. Her writing is such a breath of fresh air. It reads kind of like women's fiction sometimes. You get a lot of Allie and what she's going through and what she's feeling and her lifestyle right now, but then it'll switch up into the romance, and it felt like So High School by Taylor Swift. It felt like that first giddy romance, first love that you get, especially seeing her relationship with her ex and how he treats her and how he is with the kids and what she's going through with that, and then seeing Ethan coming into the story and coming into her life, and just like, again, breath of fresh air. Like, it is just so nice to see and read about what he brings to the table for her, how he helps her like see herself again and see how she should be treated and how she should be feeling. I think he just made her feel like she was herself again. I enjoyed this one so much. The writing style was so good. There's a few quotes in here that I was underlining that they're like very subtle, that you're reading and you're like, ooh, this actually packs a punch. I love her writing style so much. It is so bingeable. This is another book that you can sit and just fly through. If you like a sweet romance, but also an emotional story with your main character and the depth with the main character of what she goes through and just like following along with that. If you like fast-paced writing, if you like a quick, breezy read, but also has beautiful quotes, highly recommend this one. Then I read Savor It by Tara Dewitt. This one is a small town romance. We have Sage, who has grown up in this small town, and you have Fisher, who is a chef, a Michelin star chef, who recently gets fired. He needs some time off before he can come back into the chef light, and then he goes to the small town they send him to. He ends up moving in next door, and he's there to oversee and like make a menu for the new restaurant they're opening there. That's like the basis of the storyline, but that's not really what you're like following. Like, you're not really following him overseeing this restaurant and stuff. And then the back of it kind of explains how her ex is recently engaged, like that's part of the story, but you're not really getting a lot of that in the book. I feel like this book was very mundane. I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars, which was really sad. I was so excited about this book. I love me a small town romance. I love anything like that. Like, I just eat it up every single time. The things that these characters were doing just felt like it gave nothing to the story. Like, they were doing different like activities and whatnot, but it wasn't what you get in like the summary. It wasn't exciting. Like, I wasn't rooting for anything. I wasn't feeling anything. They did have like conversations that were more emotional, but I just didn't feel anything. It felt very surface level, which was really upsetting. But I read this in a reading vlog, and I did say I would recommend this book if you like small town, if you like cute animals, if you like topics of dealing with grief and characters that are both going through things but like find the peace within each other, then I think you would enjoy this book. I just personally didn't connect with anything with it, so I wasn't invested in their relationship, in the story, in the side characters or anything, but I wouldn't say not to give this a chance. If you like all those things in a book, I would still try it. I just personally didn't love it. Then I read Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. This is my second book by him. I read Beartown. Was that this year? I think I read it this year, but I was so excited about this one because this has been on my shelf for so long. Again, I said this in the reading vlog that I read this in, but since reading again and reading a lot again, every time I went to Barnes & Noble like years ago, I always noticed this book, and I don't know what it was about it. I don't know if it was the cover, the name, the summary, like I don't know. I always looked at this book and I never picked it up until that video. So this book is basically about this hostage situation, like bank robbery that goes wrong. The way it's told, you would think it's very heavy, and it does have heavy topics. I would look up trigger warnings before reading this book because it does touch on those, but that's kind of like 40% of the book. I would say the other 60%, once you get into it, is more comedic following these characters, which is a very interesting mix, but he did it so well. I gave this one 4.25 stars. I think his writing style is so unique. Like, the way he can take thoughts and perspectives from different people and put them into words is just such a talent. Like, I'm obsessed with the way he can like form sentences and words. As someone that cannot describe things well, he is phenomenal at it, and maybe that's why he's an author. Like, I could never do that. I could never describe things the way that he does, and I'm obsessed with the way that he does it. You follow so many themes of becoming an adult and being an adult, and the decisions and the stuff that switches when you do become an adult and a parent. He talks about like father-son relationships, you know, relationships in general, and the thoughts and feelings of each character in the situation that they're unfortunately in. You follow the point of view of the two cops that are kind of more on the mystery side of the story, trying to figure out what happened, how did this become from a bank robbery to a hostage situation, and where is the bank robber, like what are the sequence of events. And then you also follow all of the people involved in it, so you get kind of like both timelines. You're in the mystery with the cops, but you're also rewinding to what happened in the sequence of events of like how they got there, who each person is, and then you get their backstory. And what I love so much is they're like up front kind of shown as the narrator describes them as very dumb, and you kind of have that comedic feel with it where it's like they're making jokes, they're not taking the situation very seriously, they're all just like arguing and bickering. But then it goes into the events of how each character ended up at this place, because they're in like this apartment viewing to like buy the apartment or like rent the apartment or whatever, and they're all just seemingly on the outside feel like dumb people, like the way they interact with each other, like it's just like very fun. But when you get deeper into why they're there and how they got there, how their lives intersect, it is so like beautifully done. It is so interesting, and the way that he like reveals things is just so amazing. I highly recommend if you like writing style that is unique and like really thought-provoking writing and things that you can underline and characters that you'll probably remember for a while and the storyline that you'll remember for a while. I'm kind of obsessed with it, but like not in a 5-star way. It was just really good, and I'll probably think about this book for a while because it's so different from what I usually read, and I think that's why I like his books a lot, because again, his writing is just so unique. Then I read Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. This is another small town romance, single father, ex-nanny romance. It's kind of giving the summary in the beginning of like things we never got over. We have Veronica who's getting married to this guy who's very toxic, kind of just wants a wife for show. The mother wants them to get married. It's one of those families, and they have a lot of money, so like he has this like power over her almost. The day of their wedding, she finds something out and she flees the wedding. She's like, I'm not getting married to you. And where she flees is this small town where Austin lives, and Austin has grown up there his whole life. He's the oldest brother of I think like 4 or 5 of his siblings. His father was a single father parenting them growing up, so he's kind of taken like the older sibling responsibility, and now he has 2 children. They're twins, and he's taking care of them. He's very broody and grumpy, giving those vibes. And then Veronica runs into this diner and she has no job, no car, no phone, nothing, literally nothing. So the people are like, we have something perfect for you. Austin's been looking for a nanny since his sister has to go on her job somewhere and it's last minute, no one can be hired. So they'd hire Veronica very begrudgingly. He does not want to hire her. It takes a lot in him to hire her, and I hated it. Not for the fact that he didn't hire her, the fact that he saw a vulnerable woman and didn't help her out. Didn't give her a place to like sleep or anything. He was like so against it because he was attracted to her. Oh my god, that part of it just blew my mind. I gave this one 3 stars because I loved Veronica as a character. The small town vibes were 100% there. I loved all the side characters, the children, and like her being a nanny to them. Like I loved all of that. I think the writing style was very fast paced. I just did not like Austin as a character. I think he had like this toxic masculinity about him. He was like blaming Veronica for his like being attracted to him and like not being able to like do anything about it. And I don't know, it was just so interesting. He was very much putting like the physical attraction and connection above everything else, and I was like, that's insane. Some of the stuff that he would say to her and the way that she would react to it, it was just like mind-boggling. I think I said it in the reading vlog. I told her like, please stand up. Please. I love Veronica. I saw myself in her. She's a people pleaser. She grew up dancing. She was a rockette. You know how hard it is to be a rockette? To go audition and become a rockette? Like she is one, and it's just like no one's talking about it. Like I loved that fact about her. I think the way she reacted to things was a little bit like, I wish I could be there and help her, but her personality, the way she grew up with the single mother, like I just related to her a lot. I loved her a lot. I just didn't like Austin. That's like the only reason I gave this one a 3 star. I just didn't like him, and I wish I did. If you like small town though, if you like all of the vibes of like side characters and like the diner and the library and like the single parent and banter and stuff, like this book definitely has it. So fast paced, so bingeable. I would highly recommend it. I just personally didn't like Austin, but if you want something that you're in for like the entertainment value of it and just you like small town romances, I would recommend it. I just could not stand him. Then I read Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. This one was really fun. It's kind of like fairy tale fantasy almost. That's like the best way I could describe it. It's literally about the assistant, who is our main character Evie. She's looking for a job. She's taking care of her family. She ends up running into the villain. The villain is thought to be very old and just like not who the villain actually is, who to Evie in her point of view is very attractive, and that's really the difference in what they thought. He's younger than they thought. He's more attractive, so he ends up hiring her. That's like the prologue of it, and then you get a few months later, she's his assistant. She's been working there for a while, and it's a dual point of view, which you don't get in the beginning, but once you get that dual point of view, I started eating it up. Like seeing his point of view of everything, I was like, okay, this is eating. So you get kind of like a romancy, flirty like chemistry between the two, but then you also get the fantasy side of it where there's like magic involved. involved and there's someone trying to take down the villain, kind of like an inside job, and Evie and him are kind of like on the case of it, trying to figure out who it is, how to stop it, like what's happening. Like they're on this journey adventure together. I did give this one 3.5 stars because I feel like when things were happening, like big things, it was very entertaining. I was invested, I was into it, I'm in the mystery with them, I'm in the bond and the connection that they have as characters. But between each point of like something exciting happening, I think it was very slow to like get to each point. I was just like not into it, I was bored, I feel like there was like so much extra. But if you like a main character, a main morally gray male character who hates everyone but our female main character, if you like sarcasticness, I think their dynamic was so entertaining. She is so sunshiny and funny, and she does not care that he is literally a villain and he hates everyone. He could literally kill anyone at like the drop of a hat, and that's like what he does. Like he's a murderer, but he has little cracks for her, and when you read about them, it is just like it pinches at your heart. Like it is so good because you have someone who literally hates everyone, like genuinely hates everyone but her, and it is so good. Their dynamic is so interesting. You have like a huge grump and just like evil guy, and you have the sunshine who's just like doing her job in like the craziest of circumstances, and you're following along with them. I loved their relationship. I think the fantasy was really fun. I think the writing style was really fun. Their like dialogue was so good. Side characters were fun too. I just think like the storyline and the pacing between each like fun part was a little bit too slow for me. The second one does come out really soon, if I'm not mistaken. I think like early this month, so I do think I'll probably listen to that one. Maybe I'm interested to see like what happens in that one because of the end of this book, but not my very favorite fantasy, but it was really fun. Also could have been like I wasn't in the mood for a fantasy like I keep saying, but this one was more of like a fun, uplifting, very unserious fantasy. There were serious parts, but like more unserious than other ones that I feel like I usually read. Then I ended up reading a novella, and that's called This Winter by Alice Oseman. I was told to read this one before reading the 5th Heartstopper volume, which is the next one I have to read, so I was like, okay, I'll download it. It's like 100 something pages. It's so fast paced. The only thing is it's called This Winter, and it's literally Christmas Day with our main character, so I was like, kind of a horrible time. I read this by a pool, and I was just like, this is like the craziest dynamic. Like it's snowing, it's Christmas Day, they're like opening presents, and I'm tanning outside. Like it was just like the wrong time to be reading it, but I just love these characters so much that I just ate it up. I started and finished it while I was sitting beside the pool. It was so fast. Obviously it's a novella. You're getting different perspectives, which I love so much, and I also loved seeing Alice Oseman's just writing style because I haven't read any of her other books yet other than these graphic novels, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You start with Charlie's sister, her point of view Christmas morning, what she's going through, how she's feeling, and then it switches to Charlie's point of view, what he's going through, which does touch on those like serious topics that you get closer to the novel or the volume that I was reading. And then you actually get their third sibling's point of view at the end of it, which is so sweet because he's a younger sibling, and it was just really cute. But seeing all the perspectives, seeing them on Christmas Day, seeing his relationship with Nick again, like it's just so sweet. I love these characters. They feel real to me. I'm obsessed with them, and this was such a good little novella, a little glimpse into their lives before I start the next volume and continue on with other books by her. Really enjoyed it. I didn't rate it. I feel like I don't really rate novellas. It was really good though. I highly recommend if you're reading the Heartstopper series and you haven't read this one yet. It's short and sweet. Maybe save it for the Christmas time because it has the most perfect Christmas vibes obviously, but it was really good. Then I finished up my month with my last book I recently finished a couple days ago, and that is Swan Song. Nope. Yeah, I keep getting it wrong if it's Swan Dive or Swan Song because a girl is diving on the front cover, and I keep calling it Swan Dive. But it is Swan Song by Ellen Hilderbrand. It is her last Nantucket book, which is so crazy. If you've read any Ellen Hilderbrand book, they all take place on Nantucket, or they have some type of Nantucket theme in it because big part of her life, and you just like feel it through the paper, or in this case through the ebook. She is continuing to write. I think she's collabing with her daughter on like a boarding school type of book, but like Nantucket in general, her little like not series, but like all her books that take place on Nantucket, she's not doing that anymore, which honestly that's totally fine because I feel like how much more can you write about Nantucket and these characters? Even though I would continue to read them, I'm now ready to go through her backlist and like read all of them. So Swan Song is technically in an interconnected standalone series. I've only read the 3rd one. This is the 4th one. The first 2 I haven't read. I would like to go back and read them, but you don't have to read them to read these books. I will say reading the 3rd one, The Perfect Couple, is one of the books that got me back into reading. Highly recommend that one because that book is becoming a Netflix movie really soon, so I would start with that one. But the only thing is Swan Song, her very last Nantucket book, I don't recommend reading unless you've read a couple or more than 2 of Ellen Hilderbrand books because you really get all of these characters that you see in a lot of these books. Like this series kind of interconnected these 4 books, but all of her Nantucket books, you'll see characters from each of these books kind of in them and thrown in. Like they're all in the same worlds of Nantucket. Our main character in Swan Song, if you want to know what it's about, it's Ed Capenash. He's a main character in The Perfect Couple too. Like he is the chief of police of Nantucket. He is like a renowned character in these books. Like we love Ed Capenash. Like he is a favorite character of the series. He is about to retire, but there's one last thing that's happening, and that is this new couple that has come on to Nantucket. They've made a name for themselves while they're there. Everyone on Nantucket knows who each other is. They're a very small community. All of our characters that we've followed in like all of these books like know everyone's names, know everyone's like situation, and like all the tea and the drama and all that. They know each other. So when this Richardson couple comes in, buys one of the houses that like not many people are looking at because it's supposed to something about like the water about it, like the water rising, it's not going to be there in a few years, and they end up buying it for a crazy price. They're hosting these lavish, insane parties. They're befriending everyone. They're like becoming the talk of the town. Their house ends up burning down. So you get that in the first chapter. He's at his retirement party. He's literally about to retire, but then he gets the call. Rewind it months before when the Richardsons come to town. You see all the ins and the outs of why they came there, who they befriended, all the other point of views of the other characters that are very prevalent in the Nantucket series and the Nantucket books. You follow our one character that you learn about in a lot of the other books, Blonde Sharon. If you know who Blonde Sharon is, she is the #1 gossiper of Nantucket. You don't tell Blonde Sharon anything unless you want the entire island to know. Following her was so fun because she's such, again, another prevalent character in the books, and she's the gossiper, but you see her and her story kind of progress and like turn a new leaf, and it's like really endearing and heartwarming as a finishing book on like all of her Nantucket books, especially reading. I think I've read maybe 8 or 9 of her books at this point, so I really enjoyed it. I did give this one 3 stars because it wasn't anything too crazy. I think the mystery of it was fun. I think learning about our characters were fun. I think getting the tea and the gossip is fun. It literally feels like you're just getting drama and tea on these like high class society people that just like are doing things so lavish and just like insane for like 40-50-year-olds, that is just like mind-blowing and like so out there. But it's just like the setting that she describes of Nantucket and these characters and everything about it is just so entertaining, and just it being the last book again was very just like bittersweet, I guess is the perfect word. I do think it was a little bit boring. Like, I feel like the plot wasn't really there. We had the mystery of like leading up to the house burning down, like where is one of our main characters and like what's going on, how did it burn down, who did this. That was very fun. Going about our main characters and them just like having drama with each other was very fun, but I do think it was nothing crazy was really happening. I feel like that happens in a lot of our books where you have a huge storyline, but like you're just following these characters. It's very much character driven, even though there is like a plot point of like where we're gonna end up. I'm so sad the Nantucket like books are over, but I have so many that I need to catch up on. I'm very excited for her next release that's gonna be like collabing with her daughter, which I think is really fun. And yeah, I feel like following Ed, who's such like a huge character in these books, and like his storyline and like how he's gonna like finish off, it ends kind of like on an open-ended ending for him, which is very interesting. But I think the perfect word is just bittersweet. I wouldn't recommend this being your first Ellen Hillenbrand book if you don't know her writing style and her characters and all of that, but it was a good read. I'm very happy with the way she's like finishing this all up. So these are all of the books that I read in the month of July. Let me know if you've read any of these. I feel like I've had a little bit of a range this month. I'm very excited for the reading month of August. I feel like I'm gonna have some good books to talk about in August. But again, let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions, if you're gonna read any of these, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and yeah, I'll see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!